Alright guys, take a look at all these bikes. Alright, so today I'm going to take the purple one out. This is Harley Davidson Limited CVO. So this is like the last one I drove, except it's upgraded. Ooh, this is a backrest. Alright, so I haven't even actually done any B-roll. I haven't taken a look at this one. Alright, so on. Wow, look at the grips on this. You get better grips on the CVO. Nice. Oh, I love that backrest. That's a game changer. Has upgraded mirrors. Take a look at the mirrors. This big old bike. Big old bike. Thing's a monster. That backrest is amazing. And just like the other one, the friction zone is like half an inch. It's like a really super small friction zone. Alright, so we're kind of creeping along here. That's the other thing with these bikes with the big windshields. They get a little bit top heavy at the super slow speeds. It's almost like you're kind of going back and forth trying to balance this thing. Where, so for example, if you actually had like the really fat big tire in the front, like the Fat Boy or the Fat Bob, you actually, look at that, went over that bump, no problem at all. It's like, all right, now I have to kind of balance everything. It's kind of interesting. All right, so this bike does not do good at this walking pace. I would say that you have to get going a little bit faster to actually get this thing to perform. The first thing I notice about this bike is the backrest. It is pretty nice. It's pretty amazing. And the suspension, yeah. So I actually just took out the CVO. This the Limited. This is the Limited CVO. So this is like the upgraded version of the Limited. So, it's interesting. So I noticed on that corner, so this is weird. So you have to press harder on the handlebars on this one than you do on the CVO, on the Limited without the CVO. It's like somehow they upgraded the handlebars, where it seemed like the other one was maybe a little bit too sensitive. Let's see if I can move my mirror down just a little bit. I should have adjusted that mirror before I left. So I kind of like it with a little bit more push on the handlebars than just the regular Limited. So when I took out the Limited, it seemed like when you pushed on the handlebars, sometimes it actually surprised you and kind of jumped into the corners. And this one, you definitely have to push. I'd say like 3 times as hard you have to push on the handlebars, which kind of surprises me. This one, since they're almost, I mean, just looking at them, they almost look identical. Besides all the upgrades, I noticed the hand grips are upgraded, the mirrors are, seems like they're the upgraded mirrors, I think. This one has a, it seems like a slightly different sound. It seemed like the other one was maybe a little bit louder. than this one. But yeah, this is, you definitely have to push on the handlebars a little bit more, which takes a little bit getting used to coming off of that other one, jumping on this one. And as far as the limiteds in general, you know, not even, you know, looking at this one and the last one, the CVO and the non-CVO, I'd say they're pretty much the best suspension that I've ever seen pretty much on any bike. I would dare to say that these, the limiteds, are probably better than the gold wings. I would say for sure. I mean, if you're looking for a bike on the road, as a matter of fact, the interesting thing about this, now that I've been sitting on it for a little bit, is on the other one, it seemed like my feet were a little bit too high and I was getting a little bit fatigued, kind of right where my legs kind of connect to my torso, just because my feet were a little bit too high. But on this one, it seems like with the backrest, it takes that fatigue off of there, where I'm like 100% comfortable on this with a backrest. This is almost this is almost cheating though. I mean, this is like it's pretty amazing on this bike. It's not even like you're riding a bike. It's like you're riding on a cloud, and a very comfortable cloud. I'd say if you want the ultimate comfort and stability and control, all except the really low speed control, like right here. I'm like trying to steer left and right, trying to get it to go. All right, let's see. This is really super amazing. And it doesn't really feel like a heavy bike once you get it going. Not at all. It's really super solid in the corners. Oh, boy, that turning. It definitely takes a little bit to get used to compared to the last bike I was on. That's the thing when you switch bikes. You know, you're driving for 20 minutes and you finally get used to the bike and then you switch again. This is pretty amazing. I'd say hands down, best suspension I've ever been on any bike. And the funny thing about the Honda Goldwing is it seemed like the little bumps on the Honda Goldwing were completely absorbed, where you could feel the bigger ones, and on this one it seems like it does a little bit better on the bigger bumps. I don't know exactly what they do with the steering to make it to where you have to push it a little bit harder. Because if you look at the Limited versus the CVO Limited, it's almost exactly the same configuration, the same bike. You would think it would be exactly the same in the front end. I don't know what they changed. I was wondering if the tire was a little bit thicker on this one, because sometimes with a thicker tire I can do it. If you have a really thick tire, it almost feels like a really thick tire on this one compared to the other one. That could be the difference in the amount of pressure that you have to push. But it feels pretty stable around the corners. Feels like it has a lot of power. It could use a little bit more power. If I was to do anything to this bike, I'd probably do a little bit more power. You know, there's quite a few things you can do. You can add a cam. You can also make it louder, but I don't know if you'd want to make this one louder. It has a pretty good sound to it. If you actually see, yeah, if you actually made this one too loud, you might end up getting on the highway and then having some rattle in your helmet from from being too loud. But yeah, You definitely have to get used to that pushing harder on the handlebars. And as far as the windshield's at a perfect height for me. I can definitely see over the windshield. As a matter of fact, you could probably be a little bit shorter and that windshield would be still perfect. And it seems like it brings all the air over my head. I'm not getting any buffeting at any speeds on either one of the limiteds, the limited or the limited CVO. Pretty nice, super stable in the corners. One of the most stable, I'd say. So if you rated this bike on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best, I would say as far as stability on the road, it would get a 10. Really super stable. Stability in the corners, I'd say it'd get a 10. Ease of, as far as having a new bike and just jumping on it and going without much of a learning curve, probably 10 for me, just because I'm so big. It seems like it's really easy to learn, really easy to ride. As far as stability at low speeds, I might give it a 5. When you get down to just kind of the point where you're slow speeds like this fast is okay, but when you get right to like almost a walking speed, that's when it kind of struggles right before you stop. But there's only like one short little speed range that it kind of struggles with. Other than that, it's pretty good. Pretty good. And it seems like this one does a little bit better. Get on it a little bit. Seems like this one does a little bit better at slower speeds in the corners. Just because you get a little bit more resistance pressing on the handlebars, for the other one that was a non-CVO. So if you can hear that wind, it's not a smooth wind, it's kind of a choppy wind, and I think it's just because I'm up high. See, down here there's nothing. You lift my head up, it's still, I guess, a little bit choppy, but still pretty smooth up there. So even if you're a little bit, I think this is designed for someone a little bit shorter to kind of get your head out of the wind. You kind of get down here behind the windscreen. So for me, I get a little bit of turbulence, but no buffeting to where it's like shaking my head around, where, sometimes it'll feel like your head's in like a paint can shaker, where it can actually affect your vision. I've had that on some bikes, which is, you definitely don't want that. Alright, so every time I come up to a corner, I'm always like, alright, how much do I have to push on the handlebars on this new bike? And as far as the power, plenty of power. Personally, I prefer maybe a little bit more power, but on a big bike like this, I'm sure it's super heavy. I don't know if this has traction control on it either, but pretty nice. The thing I like about this bike in particular is the engine sound. Seems like you have more of a low roar, where some of them have like a too high of a pitch and it sounds a little tinny. Some are kind of like mid-range. This one has a little bit more of a kind of a lower, kind of a growl to it, which is pretty nice. So one thing on this bike that I did notice after we've been driving now for what, 20 minutes or so, is that on that Limited, the non-CVO, well, the one without the backrest, really started bothering my legs right where they connect to my torso, because I think my knees are a little bit higher up, and it would kind of, you know, as a matter of fact, on most bikes that have the floorboards, it kind of bothers me, all except on this bike because of the backrest. I didn't realize the backrest would have that much of an effect. So if I did floorboards, I would probably do the backrest too. The seat is really comfortable. This is like up there with the Goldwing seat. That is a really big, wide, super comfortable seat too. This is really super comfy. I noticed on this one, it almost seemed like this one had like the ventilated seat compared to the non-CVO version of the Limited. So it looked like the seat was upgraded. So you don't sweat on the seat as much. But yeah, I'm super comfortable on this bike. Probably one of the most comfortable bikes. Comfortable and confident as far as going around the turns and everything. If I bought a touring bike, this would be it. Either the Limited or the CVO version. This is definitely the one. Of course, if I was doing all highway, I might actually upgrade the windscreen to be maybe an inch higher. I could probably go another inch, maybe 1.5 inches, 2 inches. I like it to be out of my vision, so where I'm not looking at like the seam. But I think if I brought it up another inch or so, it would actually kind of cut down on the wind turbulence. I don't mind the wind, but it just seemed like it was kind of an excessive amount of turbulence. We'll see what the cop does. We all just blew through that stop sign as a gang of bikers. He may pull us over for that. I don't know. Which would be kind of interesting. Pulled over, demoing a bike. We're kind of like all one big group. We don't want to get split up. Because if we get split up, I don't know where to go. I'll be lost on this brand new bike. So the other thing about this bike is, since my feet are higher, I feel like I'm way up above the engine as far as the heat of the engine. So I don't really feel any heat coming off the engine on this one. Like I know some bikes, your legs are right up against the engine. You kind of feel the heat of the engine, especially when you stop. I didn't really feel it on this one. Yeah, it's kind of funny looking at some of these big old baggers compared to, like the Fat Bob and the Fat Boy and the Low Rider. Yeah, for me, it seems like if you just look at the bike, I much prefer the look of some of those other bikes versus the look of this one. But if you're actually on this bike doing like long miles on the highway, this is definitely the bike that you want to be on. It's like super comfortable. So I can definitely feel some of that turbulence. So we've been driving here about 5 minutes on the highway, and yeah, it's almost like I want my head to be all the way up. Give me all wind or no wind. I really don't like the kind of the broken up turbulence of the wind. Although it's not bad. I'd say it's not too bad. It's just a little bit different. Of course, with the windscreen that was a little bit taller, that would solve that. You can definitely hear the noise of the engine. Can't really hear any muffler at all. It's like all engine noise. And I actually like to hear a little bit of engine noise when I'm going, you know, 50, 55, because you kind of figure out where to shift. Or if it's too quiet, sometimes you don't really know where to shift. And then you're always looking down, trying to look at a tachometer or something, which is really distracting. So I've been hitting some pretty big bumps, and this thing just dominates all the bumps. Best suspension that I've ever been on this bike. As a matter of fact, I wish I could get this suspension on my bike, on my Dyna Street Bomb. So this bike is awesome. I think he said it was really expensive though, like in the 40s, just under 50 or something like that. Actually, if you look at the video description underneath, I'll put all the specs down there. I don't know all the specs jumping on these bikes. They're actually having demo days here at Harley Davidson. They have a big truck, big semi with I think 17 bikes. I'm just going down bike to bike and jumping on them and taking them for a test drive. So I know a lot of people on YouTube, they'll actually kind of go through all the specs. And on this one, I'm just going to give you the specs. You can expand the description of the video and look at all the specs. And this one, I'm kind of giving you more of a ride review, what it feels like, some of the disadvantages. Would I buy this bike? Yes, I would. I think I would buy this bike. This is pretty nice. Probably one of the nicest, probably the most comfortable and nicest bike that I've been on. The only thing that I don't like on this bike is the stability at walking speed. You have to you don't really want to go super slow like you're creeping along. You want to go to a certain point and then really hit the brakes to slow down a lot. Like this, you kind of have to. It's awesome. All right. Wow. Yeah, this thing almost got away from me. It's super top heavy. It's like the whole fairing. This is pretty cool too. These little highway wires. All right, guys, there you have it. That is the Limited CVO 2021 from Harley Davidson. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.